All right. Here we go. Hi. Maybe we should introduce ourselves. We don't have a moderator here. I'm Paul Soulellis. I'm going to show a few things up here and pose some questions.
I'm Ari Spool, and I'm also going to show a few things and pose some questions.
Heather Hart, ditto.
So we'll just go. This is the art panel. One of the Wikipedia articles that I became aware of recently that I'm completely fascinated with is the terminal event management policy. I became aware of it maybe like a year ago and recently discovered that it's marked as humor. Even if one doesn't know that, I think it's okay. It kind of doesn't matter, but it takes you through the procedures of what to do for a mass extinction event. How to save Wikipedia. The worst case scenario, and it's posed as policy, as though this will be put into action by the Wikipedia Foundation. It's fascinating. I recommend you going to this article to discover how we are supposed to save Wikipedia, and it takes us through these different scenarios for saving the data, from printing it out and putting it in these containers to etching it into indestructible materials and saving it in mountainsides, and putting instructions in for beaming out to other galaxies. And I'm bringing this up because this idea of printing out Wikipedia or printing out the web is something that I'm particularly fascinated with. I have been for a while, and I think an image like this brings this project that I run called Library of the Printed Web, into a kind of new light, where what is being saved from the platforms that we use every day, how publishing changes when it changes states and changes platforms, is of particular importance right now. This is right after the election. These are high school students on Fifth Avenue, marching up Fifth Avenue, holding up a tweet from Donald Trump, in this case. And also what is printed and also what isn't printed, and what is or isn't published, I think is coming into question right now in a fascinating way. This is my project, Library of the Printed Web. I've been doing it for a number of years. It's going to have a new home at MoMA Library very soon. I'm cataloging it right now and getting it ready, where I look for artists who are working with digital material from the web, from the network, who then are interested in working with it on paper. And I won't go through all these projects, but there are so many good ones. The collection now has well over 200 pieces and about that many artists as well who are working with the internet in different ways, printing it out. And I write a lot about sort of what happens to this material when it changes states, when it leaves the network and it goes onto the page. What does that mean in terms of archiving and how we engage with the information? These are just some examples of some of the materials in the collection. And as you might expect, there are a number of artists in my collection who work with Wikipedia in this way. Michael Manderberg is probably one of the more famous of these projects, Print Wikipedia, which he's been working on for the last couple of years. This was the English language version. He didn't actually print all of Wikipedia, but he uploaded one entire instance of all of Wikipedia to Lulu so that any volume can be printed on demand. And we could talk with Michael for an hour or 2 hours about this project. I'm not going to do that, but that's sort of setting the stage here. Lauren Thorson has something called the Wikipedia Random Article Collection that she's been doing for years, which is wonderful. She does this with students to try to engage with the material in different ways. And David Horvitz has a number of projects, a Wikipedia reader, where he traces people's links as they read. James Bridle, his history of changes to the Iraq War article, which are then cataloged into these volumes. I did a project based entirely on the random article generator called Chance Books, using the book generator function. So I think of these as additive acts. So Wikipedia exists, and we're adding to the world of Wikipedia. The material sort of exists in new states. We're adding on to our understanding of what Wikipedia could be. We're stretching the content, extending the platform, and thinking of new ways of preserving and archiving. We're pausing the archive to pull it out of the update cycle is another way to think about it. Just to lead to some of the questions that I have, and we've already started talking about some of these, I want to end with one particular project by David Horowitz, which first appeared in Printed Web #1, which is an artist publication that I publish and curate with artists, called Mood Disorder. This is one of them. I'm going to show you another. In Mood Disorder, he took this photograph of himself, this is the artist, like this on the beach, and uploaded it to Wikipedia under mood disorder, as you see there, or depression. And then he traces to see how people took that image and used it throughout the web. Hundreds and hundreds, I think thousands actually, of instances of this image sort of appearing all over the web in different contexts. So he circulated his identity in this way, and it's become a well-known project about the circulation of identity and how, and copyright also. This is it on the walls of MoMA at the New Photography Show last year, the entire publication. But the project I really would like us to question or sort of use to maybe spark some discussion here is this project that he did a little bit earlier called Public Access. This is also David, the artist. He took these photographs of himself on beaches in California, and then he uploaded them to the Wikipedia articles for those beaches. And he did this dozens of times. He took a whole journey just to do this. You can see another one here. Of course, the Wikipedia community caught on to this, and you'll see, I won't read them all here, but you see a number of the comments here where people start picking up on the idea that an artist is manipulating the platform in this kind of a way. And it didn't go well. To say the least. Not just describing what's wrong with the images, but questioning an artist using the platform in this way. Crap photo of dubious sourcing. But it turned into a huge controversy. If you go, you can still see there in the history of, I forget what it's called. He's a controversial figure on Wikipedia. Anyway, I'm skipping over these to show you that he did print all of the discourse out along with the work to create a publication. Done? Okay. And I will end with this question, since he was permanently banned from Wikipedia. So my question is this: signs of resistance. Is there a place on Wikipedia for acts of resistance? Is there a place for poetics on Wikipedia?
Oh. Okay, so we're going to do a little AV switcheroo. You guys are going to see my beautiful stuff. All right. So my name is Ari Spool, and I'm a digital art curator, and also I help with running a lot of Wikipedia editathons, but I specifically, in the past few years, have done editathons in spaces that are run by art collectives, artist collectives that are all, for the most part, at least some part of them is illegal. So digital art, the crux of interacting digitally with illegal artist collectives is very interesting and difficult. So you guys might know one of the artist collectives that I ran an editathon at was Baby Castles, which is where the monthly Wikimedia NYC meetings are held. That space is not technically permitted in the ways that New York City would have you for some of the activities that have there, including the cabaret license. There's technically no live music supposed to be permitted there, but it's a collectively run art space by a lot of people who have decided that it's more important to run this space together than to obey the law of what a space should be. Another place that I ran one of these edit-a-thons at last year was at Silent Barn, which is technically legal now in Queens, or in Brooklyn, but has a long history of illegality in Queens. The Brooklyn location is legal, the Queens location was not. And New York City has a bunch of different organizations that are committed to shutting these places down. Your venue will get marched, it's an acronym, and all the different city agencies like the Department of Housing and the Department of Buildings and the NYPD and the NYFD will come in and find all of your violations and shut it down. And why I find it interesting to run edit-a-thons in these places is because the communities there they share a different set of collective values than those in art institutions that are obeying everything, right? People who tend to gather in these types of places have reason to stay out of the mainstream. This reason could be artistic proclivity. This reason could be identity. A lot of times people who gather in these types of arts institutions are in some way disenfranchised. And so I was very interested in seeing what types of Wikipedia articles these types of people would want to edit. And when we did the edit-a-thon at Wikipedia, it would have been smart of me to bring up our results. But when we did the edit-a-thon at Wikipedia at Baby Castles, which is a technology-oriented arts collective, we were able to achieve a lot of different results that were comparatively as good as the other edit-a-thons that were happening at the same time. However, at the Silent Barn, which is, again, in a it's a cool arts district in Brooklyn called Bushwick, but it's also one of the poorest areas of New York still. People like to talk about gentrification as a wealth bringer, but it's actually not. And when we attempted to create the same kind of engagement in this area, we had a lot of roadblocks. And the roadblocks all pertain to there not being enough of a platform upon which to create articles for people of interest to these communities. And by that I mean, we're gonna talk about notability. Notability standards in Wikipedia are really, really strong for a reason. We don't want people making articles about nonsense, obviously. However, when communities are disenfranchised, even their icons do not have the same measure of engagement when it comes to academic resources. I'll give you a very detailed example. I spoke with one woman who wanted to write about a fixture of her musical scene who has been active for over 40 years in Vancouver, Canada. And she was attempting to make an article, and she had made this article 4 times, and each time had been flagged for speedy deletion. And I spoke to her, and I looked over her article, and I found that she had many kinds of sources, but they were all independent sources. They were not sources, and by independent I mean blogs, even smaller newspapers, like the Vancouver Sun, I believe was one of her sources, but still it wasn't enough. And I said to her, the biggest issue is not that this person isn't notable, because the woman who's the artist, had over 40 performances of Scholastic Note and so on, but that nobody had taken the time to write any kind of academic article, or she'd never be in the New York Times. And a big reason that would never happen for her is that she was, this type of thing, like a close inspection of her identity, would be dangerous for her because she was a trans person, and having her come out in this way would, if there was really a very close inspection of her identity, it would be dangerous. And so we did not, so this is an example of why we did not get the same kind of results at these kind of independent art venues. So similarly, I pose the question of what can we do, not just to make notability standards more elastic, but also how, in order to include people, but how can we take the collective vision of Wikipedia and the effort that we put in creating these articles and perhaps repurpose some of that energy into creating a better foundation for the articles to sit upon. Our scholasticity is great, and it's amazing for us to create all these wonderful articles, but at the same time, if there's no basis for them, if there's no academic writing, which as Wikipedia editors we are all totally really good at, perhaps there's not going to be the same mirror of our activities in the world. So that's my presentation.
Hi, I'm Heather. Yeah. So I'm a full-time visual artist, and the center of my practice is large-scale participatory sculpture, and I grew up in Seattle, and when I was growing up, my exposure to Black visual artists was sanctioned to 1 week a year. And so when I met my now collaborator at an art residency in 2005, we decided that we needed to make this collaboration that focused on creating discursive sites for populating the historical record with information about Black visual artists. And so we created the Black Lunch Table. And the core of the Black Lunch Table is basically creating these, or pulling together lunch tables. We provide lunch and record conversations, roundtable conversations of Black visual artists all over the world. So we've visited, I would say, probably over 25 places now in, I'd say, maybe 3 years we've been actively recording. And 2 years ago, we added, as part of our initiative, Wikipedia editathons. So as part of these modules, we go around the country and train people to edit local Black visual artists. So we'll go to some place like Seattle or Durham and do research to find a list of tasks that are site-specific and put together an editathon just for that location. And then that task list goes to our overarching, always growing task list of hundreds. So as you can see, there are holes in the art historical record. Those are people that we have been working on over time. So each editathon, we come up with a shorter list just that's site specific, and then afterwards you can always look at the longer one. But basically, in about a year, we haven't culled all the statistics since September, but we've created 20 new articles and improved about 120 articles for Black visual artists. And we too have come into the issue of notability. Now we are, the project is now funded by Creative Capital, which is really exciting for us. That's new. And so we're looking at where our tasks are going to take us, what places in the country. We're doing 2 in Canada, which is our first international editathons. And what else am I missing? Yeah, I think that's it. I would like to talk about notability as well, because that's something that we come into a lot when we're visiting places like New Orleans, where there's a lot of vernacular artists who are very well known in their community and are surprised to find that they are not published in notable newspapers or books or shown in museums. So I guess we can open it back up to all of us. Yeah. So you can always go to our meetup page. It's Black Lunch Table on the meetups. But so far, these are the places we've been. Charlotte, we were at MoMA, we were at Studio Museum in Harlem, the Joan Mitchell Center in New Orleans, Charlotte, North Carolina, Project Row Houses in Houston, a few other places in Charlotte, Banff Center, the Weeksville Brick House, and we just did the Forward Union Fair. And this coming year, I'm going to Toronto next week to do to plan the next one, and we'll be doing some at UNC in a couple of months.
Questions, please. Questions. Questions from anyone? We have time for questions, please.
We just cleared it all up for you guys, right? We just like answered every single thing.
We'd love to talk about notability if anyone else has
We're
fears
going to
about
talk about
that.
it after we leave.
Yeah, there's.
I have a question too, after him.
You mentioned about that you got a grant. It's kind of unusual to get a non-Wikipedia grant for Wikipedia work. I missed the name of the grant organization, but could you say, since that's so unusual, could you say a couple of more words about it?
Sure, that's actually the second grant we've gotten for it. And it might be partly because it's kind of an umbrella project. So Wikipedia is one module of this archiving project that we're doing. But we got one from UNC Chapel Hill, which is an academic grant. They have a digital arts initiative lab. And so because Gina is a professor there, she was eligible to apply. And then the Creative Capital is the one that we got this year. And that one, we're under the emerging fields. So that we fit kind of right in there just because it's a new adaptation to digital humanities, arts kind of.
Also, Michael's funding comes from outside Wikipedia as well, correct?
I think Michael Mandenberg, who did print Wikipedia, I think gets funding from both the Wikipedia Foundation, I think.
Yeah, we've been funded by both too.
Yeah, as well as others.
Too, in addition to this, right?
Yeah, so every time I do an art residency, I travel the project around with me. So I just got back from Charlotte, which is why I did 5 there, because I was there for a good chunk of time. There's somebody in the back.
I was going to say, I know you were talking about the notability and it being hard to prove, but actually with artists, just like in art school and college, a lot more flies. It's easier for an artist to get away with their thesis. I also noticed with artists, like, an artist's resume, artists like to elaborate, so a lot of artists actually make themselves sound grander than they actually are. Not that I think every artist should be included. I don't mind that, but it's something that goes on in the art world and in the art cosmos in general, which is to say, like, widely exhibited, shown at some gallery, which turns out to be a shoebox, so just and I think the point you made, I know this was a question, is really important in poetics. I think that it's important to do that guy that Mr. Horvitz. I think it's important for things like that to happen because if the poetry goes out of it, this could all be just done by robots. So I think it's like one of the most important points. And I myself, when I edit, I actually just run into people and I look them up, and if they don't have a Wikipedia page, I write it. Like the serendipity aspect would really return a poetic thing. I saw you were using John Cage there, so thank you.
Yeah, Catherine in the earlier panel about post-truth brought up the serendipity point. And actually, during that panel, I was thinking, okay, I certainly understand the need for strong rules and how powerful the platform is because of the rules that prohibit and don't prohibit certain things or set the agenda for Wikipedia. I get that. I get that that's why that's such an asset for the organization and how unusual that is. My interest with an artist like David Horvitz, and there are others, but not too many in relation to Wikipedia actually, is how can we be aware of artists who want to test those limits? How do we determine what those boundaries are? And art and artists are usually a great place to look for those boundaries.
And I think in terms of the idea that a lot of artists are elaborating on their own resumes and so on and so forth, to that I would almost say, so what? It's part of, if that is part of their art practice, that's fine. It's not actually the artists that are the problem. It is the fact that there's a lack of academic research or hard reporting or the things that qualify as notability sources, right? We don't rely really, when we create Wikipedia articles, we don't really rely on the artists writing about themselves to create the article. We rely on other people's writing about the artist in order to make the article true and well-sourced. But if there's nobody writing about people from the correct sources because of identity-based danger, because of
Interest.
Marginalization.
Marginalization, then those secondary sources that we need as researchers are not going to be created in the first place. An artist who elaborates their own resume as a part of their art practice, very common, as you said, very wonderful, in my opinion. And I think that is also, but what we need to do as Wikipedians, I think, is also think about how we could contribute to the research around artists or subjects that we're interested in outside of Wikipedia to help create these sources that are so necessary for what is fast and becoming and basically is the only resource for world knowledge that is reliable.
And it feels like part of the origin story of Wikipedia is trying to, unpack authorship, right? So if, let's say, Black visual artists are having
Are we done?
no publications written because of authorships are not interested in that intersection, then, that it becomes necessary for us to be able to use other kinds of metrics and lenses to publish.
I gotta
I
send
think
these
we
people off
just-
and then
Do we run out of
I
time?
think we're out
Yes.
of time.
Were we given the
Out
signal?
out of time, yes.
Okay.
Out of time.
We'd all
All
like
right.
to continue
To
the
be continued.
conversations
Thank you.
outside.
Huge time.
Did you want to introduce the next round of